We are Rogue Media Sports.
Just in and so good. Thousands of spring deals at your Nordstrom Rack store. Save big today on new arrivals from Kate Spade New York, Nike, Sam Edelman, Free People, and Madewell, starting at only $30. Great brands and great prices on dresses, denim, sandals, designer bags, and more. So rack your look and get first dibs on spring styles you want now from just $30 at your Nordstrom Rack store. What will you find?
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
It is the Doomsday podcast live from AT&T Stadium. Ed Werder and I are high above the field tonight in a luxury suite. And speaking of luxury, the luxury homes built by Marable Homes, family-owned custom home builder, building those timeless classic homes in the Dallas area, has a great team equipped to handle luxury residential new construction. It is our new partner, our presenting sponsor. And of course, you can find them at marablehomes.com. It's MARABLE homes.com. And we appreciate them so much as we get going on the Doomsday podcast. Ed Werder, Matt Mosley are high above AT&T Stadium right now in a luxury suite, thanks to the Nation family for making that happen. And it's always great to be when Ed and I are able to be here together. We enjoy that and get to visit at halftime. And I think, Ed, we were pleased with some of the some kind of, what was that? What kind of a mac and lobster type deal?
Lobster, shrimp, and mac balls with Thai chili sauce, I thought was outstanding alongside my other selections, which was some nice vegetables, some carrots and celery. I think that's pretty much what all sports writers have at halftime, except for Kalishaw looked like maybe he had a hot dog and a couple cookies, but he's kind of a throwback guy.
That was a tribute to Frank Luxa, the chili cheese dog at halftime. Now, Frank used to have about 2 of those in a cigarette, and that was and call it a halftime. All right, and we got a lot to talk about, Ed. Let's get right into it. The just the improbability. We always kind of like, oh my gosh, there's a lot to. You got Cooper Rush coming off a horrible performance in Game 1. Dak's out. There's so many things working against the Cowboys. To get this win feels really big, and even though it's early in the season, it almost felt like kind of a preservation of the season. It kind of keeps everything alive, and so just a completely different vibe after the game than when we were talking just last Sunday night.
Yeah, I mean, because you come into this game and you don't have Dak Prescott, and teams are generally not successful with their backup quarterbacks. And the Cowboys were coming into the game off a Week 1 performance in which they were the only team in the NFL that didn't score a touchdown. And they're the only team in the NFL that didn't run a single play in the red zone. And they lost 4 starters in the game, including Dak Prescott. And then you put it in the context of, the Cowboys have started a season 0-2 7 times in franchise history and only once made the playoffs. The year they won the Super Bowl after the Emmitt Smith contract situation forced him out the first 2 weeks in 1993. So if they go 0-2 today, if they lose this game against the Bengals, who were in the Super Bowl last year, and they go 0-2, now you're starting to look at comparisons with, the last time that they were 0-2, was 2010. They started 1-7, and Wade Phillips got fired in the middle of the season. The only time Jerry's done that. And, it leads to a lot of speculation and parallels that, are counterproductive to trying to get off to a good start. Now they can put all that aside. And, I thought it was interesting listening to Jerry after, and you were there too, I thought he felt vindicated as the general manager by Cooper Rush's performance and the fact that the Cowboys, put him in as the number 2 quarterback behind Dak Prescott. Because, if you lose your quarterback week 1 and you have to go out and sign somebody else to start and, turn the most important position in football upside down, you're basically admitting that the front office screwed up the roster composition. So I think Jerry, as you said, I think this takes the angst out of it for us not having Dak. He also said it's not going to affect the time frame for when Dak comes back, that's going to happen when Dak's healthy enough to hold on to a football, just by the nature of his injury. So I thought it was an important victory with all of those factors being, put into the equation.
All right, lots to get to. We've got Stretch's grades. We'll hear a little bit from Jerry Jones in his post game, and then, of course, all the comments to come. Frito, please play the music. And as Ed and I continue from AT&T Stadium, and just about an hour or so after the Cowboys' 2017 win ended at the end of regulation, and Ed, I got to say, this did feel afterwards. It didn't feel like a week 2 win. It sort of felt bigger than that. There was relief. We saw Dez out celebrating outside the locker room, waiting for Jerry. Apparently, Dez did admit on Twitter that he put $10,000 straight up on the Cowboys to win. He told me that meant $37,000. And he also complimented he liked my long hair look. So I was thinking about getting a cut, but Dez said he kind of liked the long hair look, so maybe I'll stay with this. But Jerry, just everybody, we could hear the locker room. There was a sense of elation, excitement, and Ed, you've covered a lot of these things. This did feel like a huge relief, and the fact now that let's start with Cooper Rush. I would just say right off the top of this game, I mean, to get 2 touchdowns, first 2 drives, they needed all that cushion, by the way, because Bengals almost finally came back. They chipped away, and had a chance late, and the Cowboys were able to win this thing. But those catches from Noah Brown, and let's start with this: the early decision to not only trust the offense, but basically put the ball game on the line early. First drive, Cowboys at their own, 47 or 48, face a 4th and 2. And I'm thinking, whoa, what is going on here? And not only do they make it, but Noah Brown makes a really nice adjustment on a ball that was behind him, not because of it's a poor pass, but because Cooper Rush was getting hit as he threw. And I thought, even though that it happened on the very first drive, it really set the tone for the game.
Well, I thought it was an unusual play, and we all know, Mike McCarthy ascribes to, these analytics, but I think they were actually on like the 44-yard line, 4th and 2. So they were a little further away from midfield than you described. But opening drive, you have Cooper Rush as your starting quarterback. You have a rookie left tackle playing in his second NFL game. You have a backup at left guard. And all week you have talked, you criticized Kellen Moore. Mike McCarthy criticized Kellen Moore and said he was going to be more involved and spend more time in developing the call sheet offensively for today's game, because when you're in a personnel situation like this where you don't have great players at every position, sometimes McCarthy said you need to be smart and conservative. And here he is taking this huge gamble on providing the Bengals a short field if they fail on the very first possession of the game. But his gamble was well-founded. They did, as you say, Noah Brown made a terrific catch, and They executed that fourth down. They kept the ball. They went down. They scored a touchdown, and they never trailed the rest of the game, although the Bengals did tie it in the final few minutes with a 19-play drive against the defense. But, yeah, I thought it was really impressive. And, I spoke about how hard it is to win with your backup quarterback. This is Mike McCarthy's 35th regular season game as a Cowboys head coach and his 13th without Dak Prescott. 13 times he's had to play without Dak Prescott, who, never missed a game until Mike McCarthy became the head coach. Started 79 consecutive games from the time he was drafted. McCarthy's record now 6-7 without Dak Prescott. Overall in his coaching career in the NFL, McCarthy's 12-18-1 in the regular season without his starting quarterback. That's 6-11-1 without Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. And as I said, now 6-7 without Dak Prescott. But Cooper Rush, two really impressive starts in his career for Dak Prescott. He wins both of them in the final minute with the ball in his possession. He's the fifth quarterback in the Super Bowl era, which is since 1966, to lead a game-winning drive in the fourth quarter or overtime in each of his first two career starts. The others to have accomplished that, T.J. Yates, John Kitna, Wade Wilson, and Virgil Carter. So rare company. But I thought, and I'm throwing it back to you with this thought, my question coming into this game was, hey, in Minnesota, the thing he did so well was he was aggressive, with his throws. He got the outside receivers involved in the game. It was the last time CeeDee Lamb had a 100-yard game. Amari Cooper had a 100-yard game. Cedric Wilson had 75 yards and a long touchdown. So but this time he didn't have two of those three guys. He just pretty much had, CeeDee Lamb and Noah Brown, who winds up in a game where CeeDee Lamb is playing, Jamar Chase is playing, T. Higgins is playing. Noah Brown leads both teams in receiving in this game. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Cooper Rush knows Noah Brown so well because he usually isn't a starting receiver, and those are the guys he usually throws with at training camp and during the week in practice.
I like that. I like the angle of Cooper Rush and Noah being backups and having spent a lot of time together. And, hey, there was chemistry. And even on the 4th and 2, as you said, maybe it was from the 44, that was a really nice adjustment on the ball. And then on the first touchdown, you need, when you have somebody replacing Dak like Cooper Rush, you need guys to make plays that aren't like perfectly thrown balls. And he went up and high pointed that ball. I just thought Noah Brown, I found myself kind of like seeing some of those catches and then having to double check, like, was that really Noah Brown? And not that he hadn't been a decent receiver. It's just those were really, really nice plays. And he came through for the Cowboys. And again, we and a lot of people have been highly critical, and I think we were well-founded in that, of how they've replaced the wide receiver position, and they're not out of the woods yet. Michael Gallup is on the way. Let's not act like Michael Gallup, from day one is going to come in here and be gangbusters. There may be a point that he needs to kind of ramp it up a little bit, but it was pretty impressive. I also thought, Ed, that there are certain players on the field that when you see them break into the open field, you're like, it's kind of unmistakable who it is. And while you and I both respect the kind of leader and that Zeke is and what he brings to the offense, I do think it's a great sign from Kellen Moore, Mike McCarthy, whoever you want to give the credit to. But that Pollard, today kind of felt like it wasn't like a lead back and a second back. It was like 1A, 1B situation. And a couple of times Pollard got loose today. I was like, that's unmistakable. That's a different looking player. There was a speed factor, and Ed, quite honestly, that version of the offense, and that's a tremendous thing for this offense if you can get Pollard in space, because he's electric. He really is. And you got CeeDee Lamb and you got Pollard. And as far as like the electricity, that's about it. And so I thought that was a tremendous sign for this offensive staff to really make a commitment to kind of stay in with Pollard and making sure he got some touches.
And I thought I thought Kellen Moore overall in a difficult circumstance, as we said, McCarthy, whether he intended to or not, he criticized the way Kellen Moore called, last week's game against Tampa Bay and kind of put him on the spot. And he did it with a backup quarterback. And Kellen responded. I thought he had the offense in a good rhythm. I thought he did give Pollard a lot of touches in situations where, he could make somebody miss on the perimeter and create a big play like he did to set up their second touchdown on their second possession. And I thought they did get, CeeDee Lamb the ball a little bit more. Not a lot of run after the catch for CeeDee Lamb. So I think that still has to improve. And I think as far as what you said about the wide receivers, and we're not going to say, I still have my doubts about letting Amari Cooper go. And here's why. I have my doubts about letting Amari Cooper go because it's not like somebody presented them with an offer they couldn't turn down. They got a 5th-round pick for the guy, okay? And it's not like they couldn't afford his $20 million, which is kind of the going rate now for number one receivers. And they started the season with $20 million under the cap. So it wasn't either one of those things. And to me, there's no other good reason to let one of your best players go unless he's, a divisive influence in the locker room, and Amari Cooper's never, I don't think, been that. But I think overall, we should refrain from passing final judgment on their decision to trade Cooper until we see what Michael Gallup does and how that affects the offense. But, I know it was explained to me in great detail why they made this move. And I was told, we know Jerry was upset about that he got COVID and he missed a couple games, and they felt like, when the weather was bad, he didn't really perform. And when the other team had a great corner, they could punt on him. He couldn't produce. And they wanted the Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, 6 to 8 catches at minimum every week, if you're going to pay $20 million. And they didn't see that they were going to get that out of Amari Cooper. And they felt like, well, we can get that out of Michael Gallup at half the price. And so that's their thought process in making that move. And whether they're right ultimately or they're wrong, I don't think we could have a clearer sense of that until Gallup comes back and he's healthy and fully integrated into the offense, and we see how it all looks from that point forward. And that, like you said, that could happen as soon as, next week when they play Monday Night Football at the undefeated New York Football Giants.
Yeah, the Cowboys have done everything they can, Ed, to get rid of all anti-vaxxer wide receivers with Cole Beasley gone and then Amari gone. So if you're an anti-vaxxer, they'll move you on down the road. Now, they moved somebody else out, Ed, and I thought that was an interesting part of this ball game too. And of course, it involves Micah Parsons, and we certainly need to talk about him. La'el Collins shows up as the right tackle for the Bengals. And I thought Jerry, after the game, and you and I were both there for that, I think he certainly said some nice things, and he went up and said hi to La'el Collins before the game. And I think there's a lot of good feelings toward La'el Collins, but I think it made Jerry feel particularly good about that decision that Micah Parsons gave him fits, and that La'el Collins had a false start, maybe a couple, and really struggled, especially early in this game. But I got the distinct feeling, Ed, in Jerry's response to that, there was a little bit of a twinkle in his eye, even as he was trying to say some nice things about La'el Collins.
Well, I reported this morning a little bit on the La'el Collins, Micah Parsons matchup, and made the point that when they were teammates last year, La'el Collins advised Micah Parsons to go watch some tape and study how Von Miller uses his speed, and then, establishes that against tackles, and then brings in his power rushes, his bull moves, and, how he switches from one to the other to keep the opposing offensive tackle off guard. And I suggested there might be consequences for La'el's good intentions here. And sure enough, there were, because Dan Quinn had certainly targeted La'el Collins in this game. I mean, there were several situations when they were in obvious passing situations where, Dan Quinn had Micah Parsons outside over La'el Collins, and he had DeMarcus Lawrence inside and Micah Parsons outside, and just kind of forced La'el Collins to pick which one he wanted to block and which one was going to, he was going to turn loose. And Micah Parsons just had an absolutely phenomenal game today. The Cowboys had 15 pressures on Joe Burrow in this game, and Micah Parsons had 10 of them. It's the second time in his career that he's generated 10 pressures. He had 12 last year against Kansas City. And with his 2 sacks today, he becomes just the 4th Cowboys player to start a season with multiple sacks each of his first 2 games. And listen to the list. DeMarcus Lawrence in 2017, DeMarcus Ware in 2011, and Charles Haley in 1994. Those are probably other than Ed Too Tall Jones and Harvey Martin, those are the greatest pass rushers the Cowboys have ever had. And so he's got 2+ sacks in 5 of his first 18 games of his career. And the only guys to do that are like Mark Anderson, Joey Bosa, Elvis Dumervil, Clay Matthews, and Aldon Smith. So obviously a hugely dominant performance by Micah, until I thought the pass rush kind of wore out in the 4th quarter when they really needed it most to close out the game. They didn't get it. And Joe Burrow, to his credit, for all the hits he took in this game and all the times, he's now been sacked at least 3 times in 7 consecutive games. That's by double the longest streak in the NFL. And, he went to the Super Bowl last year, coming off that ACL injury he suffered as a rookie. He led the Bengals to the Super Bowl, even though he got sacked 70 times, the 3rd most in NFL history and the most of any player in the league last year. So Dan Quinn clearly saw that this was a situation where he could dominate with his pass rush. And then beyond that, I know he wanted to, make sure he controlled Jamar Chase. They thought he was a legit number 1, and he wanted to tackle better in the run game than they did last week against Leonard Fournette. And I thought they accomplished all 3 of those things. I think, Trayvon Diggs did a pretty good job when he was matched up with Jamar Chase. Much better than when they played each other when one was at Alabama and one was at LSU. And it was funny to me after the game, remember the big 3rd down play right before the Cowboys got the ball back in the 4th quarter. Trayvon Diggs made a big, hard physical tackle just short of the sticks to force a punt. And Parsons said after the game, he's like, I didn't even know that was Trayvon. I couldn't believe that was number 7 hitting like that.
That's one of the things I like is just the some of those unvarnished opinions and things that Micah has to say. And I was kind of thinking today it just hit me that Burrow, and I think it's a good choice. Our friend Colin Cowherd has Burrow now podcasting. That Draymond Green podcast went crazy, and it has been really good for Colin. And I thought that's always tough though in the NFL because it's a different animal. NBA, you got like 82 games. If you start 0-2 and you got to do a podcast, the next morning or that night after you've gone 0-2, that's not a fun thing. And if you'll recall, Parsons skipped out like he was supposed to have a weekly deal on Fox, and he just completely skipped out on that thing, which is kind of the whole thing is interesting to me. But that was a huge win for the Cowboys. And one thing, Ed, in our conversation with Jerry, I asked him, did this feel like one of the bigger regular season wins he's had in a while? And here's what Jerry had to say in response.
Does this feel as big a regular season win as you've had in a while, given the circumstances and having Rush in there?
I think so. This was such a downer for our opening day, compounded by losing Dak. To come back and get this addressing of our quarterback spot with a performance like this, plus play a Super Bowl team, and do some good things where our strengths were, blocking, running, our running game, as well as defense. Yeah, I feel good about this ball game we just played. Very good, and feel good about our personnel, young personnel as well.
Did Cooper Rush exceed your expectations, or is what we saw out there, is that what you expected from him?
No, he exceeded my expectation. He did. No reason why he couldn't, but he did exceed my expectation. He was, I thought his passing was outstanding.
Yeah, there's Jerry Jones, as at least 50 reporters were huddled around him after the game, per usual. Now, Ed, I'll say this about Jerry: he was borderline gleeful after this one, and this was part of this. This was going to be a loss here, and if Cooper Rush played poorly, there was even going to be more pressure, blowback on him.
Correct.
And I thought he was particularly excited about this one, and just so pleased. And I thought he was candid, and he's always pretty candid about things, but he, sometimes he'll try to play down like, oh, I knew Cooper Rush was going to be this good. He did not say that. In fact, he said that Cooper Rush exceeded his expectations. And I think, honestly, he was feeling very relieved in the sense that there's, I think he was a little bit on the fence on whether or not he needed to go try to find another quarterback. And at least now, I think he feels like he's okay and can kind of keep going down this path.
Well, I think, from experience, you've had the guy in your organization for a long time. I mean, he came here in 2017, and Kellen Moore was still a player. He was in the, he was on the depth chart with Kellen Moore and Dak Prescott. And, I think you can count on him to execute the offense. I don't know that you can expect him to elevate the players around him like the Cowboys clearly presumed Dak Prescott was capable of doing. And maybe he can, but we certainly didn't see that in week one. In fact, if you look at it statistically, Cooper Rush was pressured on 41% of his dropbacks tonight, but went 7 for 12 for 104 yards and a touchdown in those situations compared to last week. Dak Prescott went 2 for 8 for 31 yards and an interception when he was pressured in week one. And it's a small sample size, but Rush has completed 58% of his career passes when he's pressured for 228 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. So that's pretty good trademark to have, is that you can execute well under pressure. I don't know. I didn't get to listen to Tony Romo calling the game, but I wondered if Tony might make it difficult with Jerry and say, what if Cooper Rush continues to play this way and the Cowboys keep winning? Do you go with the hot quarterback like you did in 2016 when I was the guy who was hurt and Dak Prescott was winning all the games and I could never get my job back? I'm being facetious. I have no doubt when you're paying a guy $40 million and you've won as many games as Dak Prescott has, Dak Prescott's getting his job back at the earliest possible opportunity. But just sort of a whimsical look at maybe this game and this situation from the perspective of a highly paid, much beloved former Cowboys quarterback and CBS announcer who called today's game.
I always like it when it's when we get some whimsical Werder. In fact, that should be a whole feature that we have. Ed, it was the feeling here and the fans. This was the crowd showed up today, probably kind of like, okay, what is this going to be like? And then when they had that opportunity to get behind the defense, it did get, it got extremely loud in this facility. And even as we sit up here right now, Ed, in a luxury suite, again, thank you to Jim and Sally Nation. What great friends they are. And we appreciate the opportunity to be in this. And Ed, let me take this opportunity to thank Marable Homes. Man, what a great sponsor. And what they do as far as luxury homes, really, I know them in the Lake Highlands area. Blake and Amy Marable, what a family and what an unbelievable job they've done. And they've become, honestly, when it comes to building these beautiful houses like the one you live in, Ed, out in Flower Mound, they've become the go-to in our area. Boy, even as you kind of look over at Highland Park and some other areas, people are starting across the Metroplex to know Marable Homes. It's Marable, and they have become our presenting sponsor this year, and we are extremely pleased about that. And in fact, I can't wait, Ed, for you to meet Blake Marable, the owner and founder of Marable Homes. So I wanted to take that opportunity, and we are so appreciative about what they do. I passed 2 or 3 of new houses going up today over near my neighborhood, and I'm not quite in that neighborhood where those houses are going up. Whoa! I mean, this will make you want to move over to Lake Highlands. But appreciate everything they've done, and it's just been a great partnership so far. Ed, it is now time to do something you always enjoy doing, and that is to talk to Glenn Stretch Smith, former Cowboys scout and coach, and he gives his grades only 1 week after expelling the entire offense. Let's see what Glenn Stretch Smith has to say about this performance. And Stretch will be on WFAA tonight doing his regular Sunday night gig on Sports Special. But let's start, Stretch, with an area that we've talked a lot about Dak's performance and then Dak's injury, but Cooper Rush getting into this game and getting the chance to start, getting the number one, first team reps all week, and then came out hot. I mean, Cowboys score touchdowns in their opening drives. Kind of hit me with early in the game what you thought, and then of course, obviously, they weren't quite as efficient in the second half. But what did you feel like Cooper Rush's overall performance?
Well, when you think about going into the week, what the Cowboys were going to try to do, what Kellen Moore was going to try to do after, I threw him out of school. I didn't give him a damn grade last week. He came in, he did try to do some extra credit, some extra work, so I let him back in and gave him a D on the learning curve, Matt. So you saw, I think, what the Cowboys need to do, which is line up in 2 tight ends and try to feed their 2 backs the football. You saw that early with the play action. That's the only way that Cooper Rush is going to be successful, is to be able to run the ball and play action. If he has to drop back, like he did a lot in the second half, you're going to see balls tipped, you're going to see errant throws, you're going to see those kind of things. But I'm telling you, what you saw in the first half was a game plan that was pretty well constructed, and he was able to function within the rules of that game plan. Again, feeding the running back. You saw him run the little power flip play for 17 yards. You saw him do some really good things. He obviously likes to throw that sail route, which is, to me, I think you saw an offensive coordinator and a backup quarterback who got on the same page and who said, hey, we got to dummy down this game plan. I've got to do some things that he likes, some things that he can do. And I know for that reason, you got to give that group, you got to give that group credit. I mean, you really do. I thought the offensive line played well. I thought they really were physical early in the football game. I thought they protected okay. I thought you saw a group of backs that ran the ball with a real sense of urgency. And so there were some things to me from a game plan standpoint that I liked. And then knowing that you got a backup quarterback who you've got to simplify the offense for, and you've got to be able to run the ball and then let him boot out of there and really get out of the pocket where you can see some things clear up. So for that reason, I mean, you got to give winning grades across the board to the offense. It's hard to win in the NFL. Just ask Josh McDaniels. It's hard. And so to come away with a win with a backup quarterback against the team who last year went to the Super Bowl, you got to give the offense a winning grade.
Right, and a winning grade usually is from Stretch a B or above. Now, Stretch, in particular, I wanted to ask you, we've given him a hard time about this receiver position. They'll get Gallup back fairly soon, if not next week, certainly the week after that probably. Noah Brown came out early. They really challenged Jerry and Mike McCarthy challenged CeeDee Lamb. What did you think about the response from this wide receiver core? I know you were giving everybody kind of a grade, but in particular, what did you think about the wide receivers? Because obviously Noah Brown made some tough catches, especially on that fourth down play, which I think was very big for the Cowboys early.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a kid that's been on this football team for 6 years. I mean, we're not talking about somebody that, to me, is a step-in free agent like a Kevontae Turpin. I mean, he knows how to play. He understands the league. And guess what? He was able to rise up and make those plays. He's a tough player at Ohio State. I mean, it's a kid that's a good football player. Does he have the speed to go the distance? Is he really what you want from a turnover standpoint? I'm talking about leg turnover, quick speed, ability to get in certain windows. We could ding him for those kind of things, but he is a tough receiver. You see him block all the time. I love that he made those critical catches and was able to step in the game and make those critical catches. CeeDee Lamb caught some balls in some tight areas. He needed to be challenged. I mean, I don't know that he truly understands what it means to be a number one receiver, but the fact that he made plays in those critical situations, those are all things that you've got to be able to build on and hopefully create some confidence with your backup quarterback, because you're going to have to play with him for about another month.
Yeah, I think that's right. And Jerry admitted that I think Cooper Rush, his performance tonight kind of settled things down in Jerry's mind, and he exceeded his expectations. Now, the defensive side of the ball, Ed, Stretch, is where you wanted to really sink your teeth in. And obviously with Cooper Rush, with Dak out, they needed a big-time performance from the defense, and for the most part, they did get that. And Joe Burrow, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, and a guy that led a team to the Super Bowl last year, was under duress throughout this game. What did you make of the defense's performance tonight?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. If you call me Ed again, your ass will be talking to yourself on this podcast. The Stretch on the phone here. Defensively, what you saw was, are you done giggling, Ed McMahon? Let me know when you're done, and we can carry on with the podcast here.
Carry on.
What you saw tonight defensively was a game plan that was very well constructed. And I say well constructed because you saw the Cowboys multiple times bring the linebackers up and show A-gap blitzes. They lined Lawrence. They lined Fowler. They lined those guys up wide and said, pin your ears back and go get him. Same thing with Parsons, lining him up wide. And when they show that A-gap blitz, what it does is it causes you to then change the protection, then be able to maybe move the center, maybe shift it one way or the other, and then you know the ball's got to come out quick if you're in an empty set, and they're showing those guys up there. I thought defensively the game plan was awesome. And I'm saying I think Dan Quinn did an unbelievable job of putting his players in a position to go be successful. Same thing he does week in and week out with Parsons. As far as the players executing that game plan, it was unbelievable. I saw Vander Esch do some things that I haven't seen in a while. I'm talking about being able to carry Hurst through the middle of the field when they played that Tampa 2 look. I'm talking about guys flying around, making tackles, getting up the field. I really thought defensively that's who won the football game for you. They really did. And the fact that they were on the field, it felt like forever in that second half, and they kept bringing it. They kept coming in. They kept rolling all of those guys in there. So you got to see the depth of the Cowboys' defensive line, and you got to see critical plays made at critical times, and especially, obviously, Diggs coming up and making that tackle in that very critical situation. Absolutely unbelievable performance by the defense, and I'm going to give everybody on that side of the ball an A because of how they performed and what they did tonight.
Man, that is that really is. You don't just hand out A's. So the entire unit getting that is a pretty special occasion. Now, you brought up the Diggs play. He will give up yards, and tonight was no different. There were some times where he gambled, and they were able to fit the ball in. Burrow kept battling, brings back the Bengals. But when the Cowboys had them pinned back, the play you're talking about, Diggs has at times been accused of not always wanting to take on and support the run, those kinds of things. To make that play behind the line of scrimmage, that was that with the game on the line, in a lot of respects, Stretch, that was the defensive play of the night.
Oh, yeah, and again, you talk about that. I mean, we'll talk about the special teams too. To me, I mean that Anger pinning them down there inside the 10-yard line was a big punt, and then Maher hit those big field goals. So when you think about how the Cowboys won this game, they're going to have to win or try to stay in these games until they can get their quarterback back. They've got to try to do it in this manner. And I thought what you saw tonight was an exact blueprint defensively and special teams for how the Cowboys are going to have to win. And they're going to be tight games. That's how the NFL is. And if you can get your special teams to do some of the things that they did, then to me, you got a winning formula, and you got a 1-1 Cowboys football team. And I think, everybody is going to be happy that they're in the position they're in right now.
Did it make you nervous how they handled the clock right before the field goal? They had already called that timeout, the last timeout, with 24 seconds left. They came out, they ran the football, and they got it clocked with 3 seconds left. Did it look? It looked a little bit chaotic, I got to say, from being in the stadium and watching it all. Were you sweating that a little bit at the time?
I don't think so. I really, if I have to point to one thing that aggravated me during the game, it was when they jumped after they had Cincinnati stopped on that first series coming out in the second half. They jump on special teams. I get how, hey, you're trying to make every play, and quite frankly, I would have come down on the special teams coach harder, but I know that in these situations, you got to have those phases of the game have got to win for you. So was I nervous? No, to me, that looked like they had kind of practiced that. They threw that wide toss and they pulled everybody out there, and, you saw Zeke kind of get what he could, and they wanted it on that hash. He got down, they got up and got the clock stopped by clocking the football, So I wasn't like, when I didn't feel like I was barking at the TV at that point, like, get it down like I was when they jumped on the special teams, and you're like, oh my gosh. So I was not nervous at that point, and I thought they did a great job getting themselves in position to win the football game.
All right, and then also to your point on special teams, Turpin had a really nice return that set up that final drive to get in position, and I thought that was an important. All right, Stretch, I appreciate it. Cowboys improve to 1-1, and everybody feels better about things, and now I think probably they don't feel as desperate to. Obviously they'll get Dak back when they can, but I think some of this unrealistic timetables that sometimes get thrown out. I think everybody feels kind of better about things this evening. Appreciate your time, and we'll be watching on WFAA every Sunday night, and then of course the call-in show. People out here tonight in the press box actually were talking about that. You and one of your mates got married. He's been in Cancun. So, but Mike Leslie and the whole gang, that's a good kind of a noontime program. Stretch, we appreciate your work.
All right, see you later, Matt. See you later.
There he goes. There he goes. Very offended that I called him the wrong name. But, if you're going to get called the wrong name, Ed Werder is a good name to get called, I think. All right, there he was. Stretch plays. And it was some really kind things were said. And, Ed, you were down there finishing up all your ESPN duties. I appreciate. I know ESPN understands that your first priority is always the Doomsday podcast, but we appreciate all the work you did for ESPN today. And I was in church this morning. I was still kind of trying to monitor some things on the Sunday Countdown show that ESPN does. It was just so I know. Did you you delivered some of this Lyle Collins intel you had gathered? Anything else I might have missed? What was what was your big morning message as you did all your hits leading up to the game?
My morning message, I did 2 hits for Sunday Countdown. I was on Sports Center. I was on Fantasy Football Now, and some other programs that I'm not even sure you can get. My day started here at 8:30 a.m. at the Church of Jerry. And we wondered if the Cowboys would be taking a knee today or not. They did not take a knee. I guess I tried to characterize accurately sort of the state of the team, leading with, Zeke Elliott saying that there's concern but not panic, or there's urgency but not panic. Kind of went through how McCarthy went beyond just taking his share of the blame, that he was actually being more involved and that he was, working more directly and collaboratively with Kellen Moore on the play sheet. Did talk about Cooper Rush and the challenges that he faced inheriting a team that didn't have a collection of proven receivers. It started a rookie at left tackle and a backup player at left guard, and then sort of finished with Micah Parsons and the defense, and that was the aspect of this team that they needed to step up and take over. And that played out. And so did the Micah Parsons on Lyle Collins element that I did. So I think I kind of structured everything the right way and gave everybody the right thing to look at. And hopefully in the post-game analysis, we're doing the same thing here right now. Jerry said, afterward we have, and he's been saying this, we have a defense that we can lean into. We don't have to win on offense anymore. We don't have to have the number one offense. We don't have to score the most points. And if you look at it, I think, and I know I felt like even if Dak didn't get hurt, the Cowboys could have easily started the season 0-2 with who they were playing. You're playing Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks. You've never beaten Brady. And then you got Joe Burrow and one of the best young quarterbacks in football coming in, and they just went to the Super Bowl last year. And as it turned out, you're starting a backup quarterback and have all these offensive problems to overcome. And the defense did what it was supposed to do. They gave up 19 points to Tom Brady, and they gave up 17 points to Joe Burrow. I mean, if you don't hold teams under 20 points in this league, the way it's structured now, you should be able to win all those games if your offense is competitive at all. And I suspect that when Dak Prescott comes back, they'll begin at some point soon to play better offense. And, they get Jason Peters. They have a little better offensive line. It'll be interesting to see how exactly they configure that, because Tyler Smith, their first-round pick, played well today. I mean, you never heard Trey Hendrickson's name. He's a great pass rusher. Had 14 sacks last year, for the Bengals. He's a relentless effort player, and I'm not sure he did anything of consequence in this game. So credit to Tyler Smith, who's been put in a tough position. But does he remain left tackle? Does Jason Peters become the swing guy? Does he go out to left tackle and move Tyler Smith inside where they plan to play him? Suddenly they're a team with some possibilities, and I think maybe the wide receiver thing will become significantly better with Michael Gallup, although, again, not going to issue my final judgment on the trade. It seemed unnecessary. They'd be better off with Amari Cooper. Cooper had a 100-yard game today after Jacoby Brissett. Colts quarterback said he went back and looked at the film last week and saw Amari Cooper was open almost on every play, and he didn't get him the ball near enough. So the Cowboys are going to miss that, no question in my mind.
All right, the Browns quarterback saying that, and Ed, that was as I was driving out to the game today, I was listening to some of the games, and they said something about Amari Cooper wide open for the touchdown. I thought, okay, they could probably use some of that around here. But the Cowboys preserve everything, get it to 1-1. And given what's kind of happened in the division, and Ed, by the way, the Giants getting things done, and so that's going to be an interesting matchup. You talked about Monday Night Football. Obviously, you're always in the house. You're an enormous part of ESPN's coverage, so hopefully we'll be well represented there. Ed, before I give you the final word, let me say one more word about a sponsor, Lakeside Roofing. Very excited to tell you about another exciting partner that we have, family-owned, full-service roofing company serving the Dallas-Fort Worth area, serving the DFW Metroplex with the highest quality roofing products paired with the highest quality workmanship. Lakeside Roofing Company. That's lakesideroofco.com. lakesideroofco.com. You can follow them on Twitter at Lakeside Roof TX. All right, Ed, again, I know you're excited about some of our new sponsors, and Marable Homes. You can find them, by the way, marablehomes.com. That's MARABLE, marablehomes.com. And just family-owned custom home builder, building timeless classic homes in the Dallas area. And Ed, I who knows? I don't know who you used out in Colorado, but they may just add that to their repertoire, is some of those second homes that people like to do. Ed, as we look toward Monday Night Football, how do you kind of see the Cowboys as they head into that one? No mention of really any injuries. We'll find out. Maybe some people banged up. Michael Gallup, for instance. Ed, you've been out there at the Star. Do you kind of sense that Gallup is getting fairly close? Do you think he's still maybe a couple weeks away? Where are they with him?
I think that, Mike McCarthy has said ever since we began asking him in camp that, Michael Gallup has, made his target as he's gone through this process with Britt Brown, the Cowboys director of rehabilitation, who, Mike McCarthy will tell you is the best he's ever had in terms of getting players, to return and to be healthy when they return, and to do so as quickly and safely as possible. Last week, Gallup was in pads and participated in a padded practice for the first time in team drills. So I would think that if he goes through this week without any setbacks, they have an extra day. I think they'll have a decision to make on Michael Gallup playing against the New York Football Giants. I think one other injury that bears watching, CeeDee Lamb although he finished the game, seemed to have some issues. Dalton Schultz, a tight end, went down at one point with what appeared to be a knee injury. I don't think it's hugely significant. I don't think it involves the ACL or anything like that, but a knee sprain or whatever could cost a player a game or two. But yeah, I think they'll be a serious consideration at the end of the week about playing Michael Gallup next week.
All of that is really good news for Cowboys fans. And with Michael Gallup on his way back, Noah Brown having a tremendous game and actually played, looked like the best receiver on the field today. And we're talking about Jamar Chase, as Ed said, one of the great young receivers in the game, and CeeDee Lamb being the same. And yet it was Noah making those plays. And then I noticed, Ed, that Eli Apple, Cowboys did a nice job of kind of targeting him. He was in a bad way throughout the afternoon. That's the former first-round pick for the New York Giants, and he's had some struggles last year. But it was, again, everybody that was there today was pretty much on that Super Bowl team. So it's not like the Bengals, used to, Ed. You saw this with the Cowboys back in the day. We even saw it with some of those Giants teams. If you played on a Super Bowl team, they would lose a lot of players because everybody would want those players from the Super Bowl team. It doesn't really happen like that anymore, and more teams retain their players. But boy, they better do something to protect Joe Burrow, because he just can't keep taking that many hits. And we'll see. And then, by the way, some of them were deemed illegal today, especially with Anthony Barr coming in and kind of a helmet-to-helmet type situation. Ed, tremendous work by you. Appreciate it, and hope you have a great week. And then we'll all load up and head to New York and get ready for some Monday Night Football next week. And so Ed and I'll be with you as only we can. We love some late night podcasting. And so we'll talk to you. You'll probably hear from us early Tuesday morning. Have a tremendous week. And we are signing off live from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Everybody have a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks to Frito Nation Productions. Good night, everybody.
Justin and so good. Thousands of spring deals at your Nordstrom Rack store. Save big today on new arrivals from Kate Spade New York, Nike, Sam Edelman, Free People, and Madewell, starting at only $30. Great brands and great prices on dresses, denim, sandals, designer bags, and more. So rack your look and get first dibs on spring styles you want now from just $30 at your Nordstrom Rack store. What will you find?
Hey, it's Mark Goodman.
And I'm Alan Light.
On today's podcast, Record Store Day founder Carrie Colleton is joining us to discuss the April 20th RSD special releases.
Plus, we'll talk live with our audience, the Sound Up Pod Squad, and find out who still listens to vinyl. And some updates from the Beatles universe.
Oh, good. Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters. Get it on Pandora, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.